Lesson 102 of the workbook of A Course in Miracles. This lesson is, I share God's will for happiness for me. I share God's will for happiness for me. Coming on the heels of the last two lessons, lesson 100 was, my part is essential to God's plan for salvation. And then lesson 101, which we did yesterday, which was, God's will for me is perfect happiness. And then today, I share God's will for happiness for me. Notice it doesn't say perfect happiness there. It doesn't say I share God's will for perfect happiness for me, but I think that's what is meant. All right, so let's read it. Paragraph 1, you do not want to suffer. You may think it buys you something, and may still believe a little that it buys you what you want. Yet this belief is surely shaken now, at least enough to let you question it, and to suspect it really makes no sense. It has not gone as yet, but lacks the roots that once secured it tightly to the dark and hidden secret places of your mind. Paragraph 2. Today we try to loose its weakened hold still further and to realize that pain is purposeless, without a cause and with no power to accomplish anything. It cannot purchase anything at all. It offers nothing and does not exist. And everything you think it offers you is lacking in existence like itself. You have been slave to nothing. Be you free today to join the happy will of God. Paragraph 3. For several days, we will continue to devote our periods of practicing to exercises planned to help you reach the happiness God's will has placed in you. Here is your home, and here your safety is. Here is your peace, and here there is no fear. Here is salvation. Here is rest at last. Paragraph 4. Begin your practice periods today with this acceptance of God's will for you. In italics, I share God's will for happiness for me, and I accept it as my function now. Then seek this function deep within your mind, for it is there, awaiting but your choice. You cannot fail to find it when you learn it is your choice, and that you share God's will. Paragraph 5. Be happy, for your only function here is happiness. You have no need to be less loving to God's Son than He whose love created Him as loving as Himself. Besides these hourly 5-minute rests, pause frequently today to tell yourself that you have now accepted happiness as your one function, and be sure that you are joining with God's will in doing this. Full stop. This is that was lesson 102. Generally, as I've been saying, you don't usually get it the first time you read it. You might have to read it many times, at least one or two more times for now. So we're going to read through it slower, paragraph by paragraph, and see if we can understand what is being said. Because, like I said, you just hear it and it's like, what is that saying? What's going on there? So paragraph 1 of lesson 102. I share God's will for happiness for me. You do not want to suffer. Bottom line, right? You do not want to suffer. You might think you do. You might unconsciously be imposing suffering upon yourself, but you don't really want to suffer. You may think it buys you something, and may still believe a little that it buys you what you want. Yet this belief is surely shaken now, at least enough to let you question it and to suspect it really makes no sense. It has not gone as yet, but lacks the roots that once secured it tightly to the dark and hidden secret places of your mind. I think this last sentence is the clincher here. It has not gone as yet, but lacks the roots that once secured it tightly to the dark and hidden secret places of your mind. All right, it's a belief. We're talking about a belief in suffering, a belief that suffering can somehow give me what I want, right? That a belief that suffering somehow is going to lead to happiness, right? If I suffer, I'm going to be happy. It's an insane thought, actually. As Jesus is pointing out, a as soon as you start to look at this in the light of reason, in the light of truth, in the light of love, it starts to, you start to get to the root of the problem. And the roots are begin to weaken. It lacks the roots that once secured it tightly to the dark and hidden secret places of your mind. That's a big part of it, is that the dark and hidden secret places of your mind means that this is unconscious. We're unconscious of this dynamic that's going on. It's an ego dynamic that's happening where we are unconsciously addicted or believing or conditioned to believe in suffering and the value of suffering. All right, so we'll go on. Let's go on. Paragraph 2. Today we try to loose its weakened hold still further and to realize that pain is purposeless. And here, pain is the same as suffering. Pain and we say pain and suffering. It's really the same thing, pain and suffering. Pain is purposeless, without a cause and with no power to accomplish anything. It cannot purchase anything at all. It offers nothing and does not exist. And everything you think it offers you is lacking in existence, like itself. You have been slave to nothing. Be you free today to join the happy will of God. So Jesus said 3 times here that pain and suffering is nothing. It has no existence. It is not real. He doesn't say it's not real, but he says it does not exist, has no existence, and it's nothing. And that's the ego. The entire ego and the ego thought system, it seems very real, and it seems as if something that we can, that does have roots, but Jesus is saying, not only does it not have roots, but it doesn't even really exist. Has roots only in the illusion, in the dream. But the dream is not real. The illusion is totally unreal too, right? The dream and the illusion, dream and illusion are synonymous, right? So this whole manifest material universe, the physical universe, is illusory. And pain and suffering are like the foundation of this material universe. It seems that pain and suffering are very real, and they are like part and parcel of the material experience, the physical experience, or the human experience. And Jesus is saying that in reality they are nothing. They do not exist. You don't need to give them your belief. You don't need to give them any power. They have no power over you. You don't want them, right? You don't really want them. Paragraph 3, meaning, and that's where the will comes in. Your will is God's will, right? I share God's will for happiness for me means God doesn't want this for me, and I don't want it for me. I don't want to suffer. God does not want me to suffer, and I don't want to suffer. And the reality is there is no suffering, right? That's the illusion. Paragraph 3, for several days, we will continue to devote our periods of practicing to exercises planned to help you reach the happiness God's will has placed in you. So this is like the beginning of the next few lessons that will, that are planned to help you reach the happiness God's will has placed in you. Here is your home, and here your safety is. Here is your peace, and here there is no fear. Here is salvation, here is rest at last. So these words, in a way, are all synonymous. Home, God's will, happiness, safety, peace, no fear, salvation, rest. These are all the same, right? These words are all just signifying the same thing, which is our unity with God, that our oneness with God or in God. And that is happiness. That's happiness, but that's all these other things as well, right? Rest and home and so on, no fear, peace. So 4, begin your practice periods today with this acceptance of God's will for you. And you say, this is what you say: I share God's will for happiness for me, and I accept it as my function now. So my function is to be happy, right? To heal is to make happy. How does healing happen? Healing happens through forgiveness. So forgiveness is my function. To be happy is my function. And to heal is my function. These are all different ways of saying my function. Then seek this function deep within your mind, for it is there, awaiting but your choice. You cannot fail to find it when you learn it is your choice and that you share God's will. So it's about acceptance. It's about accepting that my true function is to be happy, not to suffer. God's Son does not need to suffer, right? There is no suffering necessary. God does not ask for sacrifice. God does not ask for atonement in the usual sense of the term atonement. For the Course, the term atonement means just the mere acceptance that only love is real, right? The mere acceptance that God has never changed and that separation is totally unreal and that the ego is totally unreal. That would be the atonement. So in that principle of the atonement, that principle is only something to not be denied anymore, right? You just stop denying that that's true and you're there. That's the only thing that's required of you, right? And it's not even a sacrifice because that's what you want. Jesus starts by saying you do not want to suffer, right? You want to know the truth. That is God's will, and that is your will. That is my will. 5, be happy, for your only function here is happiness. You have no need to be less loving to God's Son than he whose love created him as loving as himself. This is a very important line. Let's read it again. You have no need to be less loving to God's Son than he whose love created him as loving as himself. That's just a way of saying, if God is totally loving, then you must be totally loving to everyone and everything, right? That is our job, is to be totally loving. That means not an ounce of cruelty or hate or judgment or anger. To be totally in the love, which also means to be totally happy. And that is true happiness. So be happy, for your only function here is happiness. You have no need to be less loving to God's Son than he whose love created him as loving as himself. Besides these hourly 5-minute rests, pause frequently today to tell yourself that you have now accepted happiness as your one function. So you're going to be resting in this idea 5 minutes every hour. And in addition to that, you want to pause frequently throughout the day and remind yourself that you have accepted happiness as your one function. And be sure that you are joining with God's will in doing this. Okay, so you wait. You spend the 5 minutes just reminding yourself that my one function is to be happy. God's will for me is to be happy. And all I really want is to feel that happiness. And you can also add joy and peace and all the other things as well. Right? I want to feel that connection. I want to feel that wholeness. I want to feel that nothing in this world can take that away, because that is what I am, and that is what everyone else is. So I also do not want to take that away from anyone else either. Now, we all know that these words are so nice and so persuasive, and so it's like I've been saying, it's like you can assent to all this. You could be like, yeah, that's right, that's so right, that's true. I don't want to suffer. I want to be happy. happiness is the only thing, and I don't want to judge others, and I don't want to, right? But in this world, obviously, we live in a world where it, on the surface of things, if you look at it deeply enough, you see that there's constant turmoil and struggle and attack and judgment, and all of these things, all these great teachings they come up against the facts on the ground, right? In the quote unquote real world that we live in, where people are not so nice, and people will judge you, and people will attack you, and we do the same thing to others as well. Especially when we feel attacked, we attack back. And I have I'm dealing with an issue right now with someone who, I'm not going to go into all the details, but this person is kind of making me, from my perspective, the person is projecting onto me things that I don't think are true. So how am I going to deal with that, right? They're projecting onto me what I perceive, from all the things that I've learned now, like from the Course and otherwise, I see what this person is doing as projection, right? They're projecting their own pain out onto me because they don't want to look at it and deal with it themselves, and they are making up a story to make it so that they feel justified and they feel right in their position. And if I say anything to the contrary to that, and if I try to bring that point up, which I haven't, and I wouldn't, because that tends to make it worse for people. But it's very difficult to get a word in edgewise there, right? You can't say much in that regard, because what it comes down to is that that person would have to basically come to a place where they can start to see that maybe how they're seeing things may be a little off. And no one generally is willing to admit that in the moment that it's happening. They're not going to all of a sudden say, you know what, you're right, I'm a little bit, I am maybe acting a little bit rashly and a little bit unreasonably, Now, I'm also not going to say that I'm completely right, but what I do know, I think I know, is that no one here is perfect. We all make mistakes. We all do things that are a little off. And but I think what it comes down to, especially if you're a student of the Course, it seems to be that you start to be open to not needing to be right and not trying to be right. But rather being willing to say, I don't know, being willing to say, maybe I don't have, maybe I don't have what I think I do, but maybe I need to be a little bit more open, and let go of the judgment. This is a big one, that this is not an easy topic, because I think generally what will happen is that we come up against a block of some sort, right? Because a lot of times there are places in our mind beyond which we're not ready to go yet, right? We're not willing, we're not ready to go. So you can only, that's why love cannot force and does not force. But love just says, whenever you're ready, you're going to see this when you're ready. I don't need to shove this down your throat. I don't need to try to convert you to my way of seeing things. I don't need for you to change anything that you're doing necessarily. as long as it's not hurting someone else, if it is, I might need to step in and prevent someone else from getting harmed. But otherwise, everyone is entitled to hold onto whatever line of thinking or line of feeling that they have, and who is anyone else to try to force them to think or do otherwise? So that's what it comes down to. But that's why this course is, this is not a snap. It could be a snap, but it's generally not. This is also why a lot of people kind of give up on the course, because they start to see that it's not such an easy thing, and if you start to see where this is taking you, you might get scared. That this is taking you beyond your it's taking you beyond all separation. Going beyond all separation means that I am not even the person that I think I'm not even a person. I am not, my true reality is not in a body as a being, as an individual distinct personality, but rather ultimately I am the one Son of God, whatever that means exactly. And that's quite a tall order, and that's quite a something I would think. Not only do I think, I think I know that you got to warm up to this idea. This is not something that you're going to accept anytime soon, right? Because this flies in the face of everything that we have been conditioned ourselves to believe about reality. That's why the course is basically, thought reversal, reversing everything, reversing all the thinking of the world, the entire ego thought system. So I don't want to belabor this because this is like an ongoing theme, but I just wanted to kind of bring in kind of a reality check and something that might be helpful, because we all deal with the issue of when you don't see eye to eye with someone, right? And what do you do about that? And the person, what do you do when someone is judging you, and you don't feel that their judgments are justified? But there's not much you can say about it, right? A lot of times we get frazzled, we get disturbed by that, we get agitated when that happens. But I think that we have to also recognize, I think it's important to start to recognize that you don't want to back down from the truth, right? So if someone is coming at you and you really feel strongly that they're not coming from a place of truth, and that they're being motivated by, you could say, less than true motives or factors, then don't laugh it off. Don't take it too seriously. Don't let it bother you. Don't let it bring you down. So I guess enough said for right now about that. I would love your thoughts on this if you've been listening and you've been, taking in what I've been saying. And lesson 103 is next. God being love is also happiness. I think this is the first time that it says, we'll talk about this when we get there. It's a short one. God being love is also happiness. It's the first time I think that it really makes that equation of God is love, right? God is love, and love is happiness. So we'll get there soon. Thank you for listening. See you very soon.